everyone. Welcome to our third episode of Unfiltered Perspectives. I'm Tara.
I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Leslie.
Today, we're going to be tackling a topic that hits close to home for many of us. Too often, we measure our worth and accomplishments by society's standards, leading to feelings of failure and inadequacy. When we think that we've fallen short, that headspace, where we sometimes get that overwhelming sense that we are just failing at life. It's not uncommon for people to have times where we question our value, our level of achievement, the choices we've made, and the path we're taking. Whether it's struggling to meet societal expectations, facing disappointments in our personal or professional lives, or just battling with self-doubt and uncertainty. That feeling of failure can weigh so heavily on our hearts and on our minds. But when this happens, the good news is that it's not all darkness. There is opportunity for growth and transformation. What if there's a better way to view success? Today, we'll explore not only what makes us feel like failures, but how we can challenge and reframe our perspectives on success. Welcome to Unfiltered Perspectives, where real talk leads to real growth and every perspective is valued. Ladies?
Thank you for that introduction, Tara, into today's topic. So we're talking about perspective makeover from failure to success. People believe because they aren't where they want to be in certain areas, they think that they're failing at life. So we want to talk about how you measure success. So in thinking about that, what I oftentimes do is I'll ask questions. I'll ask friends or coworkers, I'll ask questions. And so I did that with this topic as well. And I did ask someone how they measure success. And their comment or their response was, I don't measure success because I haven't had any.
Wow.
So that was very interesting. And so my response to that was, you have to measure it or at least know what it should look like to you to feel like you haven't had any.
Mm.
What are you measuring it up against to feel like you haven't had any success? I asked another person that same question, and the response was, they measure it by personal gratification, the respect of your family, peers, and customers. And so my response to that was them using the term your versus my. And it sounded to me like it was how they measured another person's success versus their own. And so I asked again how they measure their own success. And it was the same answer. If their family was good and they were able to support their family and they were satisfied with their station in life, then that was success for them. And I was able to relate to both answers. And I looked at how I measured success. And for a lot of people, you're going to have a lot of different answers. When you think about success, I think people think career-wise. Some people think, we've talked about mental health and wellness, personal relationships. So I think different people are going to have different answers. And we need to be specific, I guess, when we ask that question. When I think about my own success, career-wise, career versus jobs, I don't feel like I've been successful in that area because I feel like I have a job and not a career, if that makes sense. Kimberly, did I?
It definitely does. So I turned 50 last year, and I actually, for a period of time, started seeing a therapist. I wanted to see a therapist in those months leading up to turning 50 because I really wanted to deal with this issue for myself of feeling like I'm not where I thought I would be at this age or this stage in my life. I'm not where I should be at this age and stage in my life in terms of career, in terms of family and personal relationships. So I don't know if I'm responding to a question. Mostly I'm just putting all my business out on this podcast.
As we all will do.
Yes, I am
But
fully prepared to do that, little.
all of that to say, I absolutely know what you mean about feeling like I'm not where I thought I would be. A lot of shoulding. As somebody told me, I shouldn't should all over myself.
Well, I like that. I'm glad you enunciated
Yes, thank you for that.
because I was wondering for a minute. Okay. But yeah. Tara, what about you?
I have had some struggles in this area. What I will say is something that I've learned. It's important for me or for people, I think, at this stage to challenge external standards, external expectations that influence how they view their own success, and instead look to intrinsic motivations, look to how they find fulfillment or purpose in terms of their own values, aspirations, their own goals, rather than focusing on what society expects of us, instead of focusing on what we think we should have achieved by any certain stage in our lives or any particular activity. I don't know if now is the time for me to talk about my own specific struggles. Does somebody else want to go first? Until I don't want to say get the courage to do that, but I need to take a few deep breaths before I get into that.
Okay. Well, I will gently wade into this water of disclosure. I will start off talking maybe about my own sort of, I don't think of them as struggles, but so I think I would probably say my third career at this point. Many of my peers are established. They have been working in their field for 20 or 30 years, so they're at senior levels. I am newish. I'm newish. And so I was an organizer. I was a professor. Now I'm a minister. All of that was good, great, amazing, fulfilling work in the world. And I'm 9 years at this, not 30 years at this, where a lot of my peers are.
Mm-hmm.
So you're measuring your success based on the number of years versus their number of years?
No, I measure my success by the amount of money that I have. And what that really means is I measure my lack of success by the lack of money that I have. If I had stuck with a thing for 30 years, I think I'd be earning more in that field. But because I haven't stuck with any of those things, and also, I didn't do anything that was particularly high earning, even if I had stuck with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really do measure success by how much money I have. I cannot imagine, given the work I do, that I will ever have a lot of money, that I will ever have a lot of savings, that I will have home ownership, which are all like markers of what one might expect at this age. I'm not going to have any of that. If I had made different choices around my career, I probably would.
Okay.
But I had to
So
do a lot of work to tell myself, that's okay. It is okay. I still have to tell myself every once in a while, that's okay, because I don't fully believe it.
You don't fully believe it.
I don't feel it
Okay.
always.
so that takes me back to something I said, and this is a question for both of you and Kim first, since we're already with you. When you think of measuring success, you automatically think career and finances. So that question to you and then to Tara.
Oh, I think both. And my life is not a hot mess. On paper, though, it does not look great because I think money, career and finances. I also think personal life. I mean, I think I assumed at this point in my life I would be married and have children because when I was young, that was what women did. Got
Right.
married and had children. I have neither one of those things.
Okay. And so, Tara, when you think of success, do you also think of money and career, or are there other?
I don't really it's hard to answer that. I don't really think of it in terms of money. I think because that may be because I'm in a little bit of a different situation than Kimberly is.
Mhm.
What I will say is that, and I hope this answers the question a little bit. One of the things that I struggled with are the choices that I've made in my life. And by that, I mean, I graduated from an Ivy League school. I went to law school. I practiced as an attorney for a few years. And now I don't work in a high profile field. I gave up the practice of law. My friends from that life have moved up and into more lucrative positions, or some may say more prestigious ones. A lot of them are judges right now. But me, I traded in that life to be a stay-at-home wife and mother. I now that my child is an adult, I am a life coach. And I know that a lot of people see that as letting go of all that education or money, that just went to waste. And the reason I know this is because some people have questioned my choices behind my back, and others have actually had the temerity to say it to my face.
Hmm.
So,
I said, who I want to fight them.
that's all right. I have felt conflicted. I have felt judged by others for making the career transitions that I've made, especially after, like I said, investing time and effort into pursuing higher education and practicing in that particular field. I felt embarrassment and shame even for abandoning, and I'm using air quotes here for those who can't see me, for abandoning the career that others see as a dream, or in some cases, as my duty to represent. So, yeah, there are times when I felt like an utter failure and a disappointment. And I wondered also, as a parent, what kind of example have I set or am I setting? It took a really, it took a really long time for me to accept and to get comfortable with the truth that my journey, my career choices are valid. They're meaningful regardless of external perceptions. It took a long time for me to be able to even articulate that the my choices reflect and I'm keep stressing my because that's where the focus has to be on my evolving interests, my passion, my priorities, not other people's. They are mine to make, and they've guided or really, been guided by what brings me fulfillment, what I think my sense of purpose is. So the long way around to answer your question, that is now how I measure success, fulfillment, purpose. And I no longer measure it by comparing myself to others, which is what I did for a long time, or measuring myself against what I think other people expect of me.
Mm, okay. Thank you for sharing
What
and
about
being.
you? Thank you.
Whew. So yeah, I think that I measure success for myself differently than I measure success for other people.
Mm.
because as I've so often been told, I'm my own worst enemy. Okay. Tara and I talk a lot, so she probably would agree that I'm very hard on myself.
Sure.
And I think that, we're all a work in progress. And I know for sure I am. And it's only recently that I'm learning that one, it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And two, to accept where I am in the moment. I beat myself up a long time. And again, talking about success, for me, it's not just about my career choices. It's not just about how much money I have. For me, it's a whole lot of things. It's about my children. I felt like I did not have a career. I felt like I didn't have the best jobs. I was just making it. I feel like I failed as a mom. I felt like, I won't say feel like I failed as a mom. I failed as a daughter. And I'm not going to look at you too when I say this. I failed as an auntie. I may have told Tara that.
You did
I
not.
failed at so many things. And I'm just getting to be okay with getting better at the things I thought I failed at. I did the best I could with the tools that I had. What I'm learning is no one's going to love me better than I love myself. So I have to learn to love myself and keep pushing forward. Another thing about success for me, Tara and I have spoken on a radio show about mental health, which is something that I will be very transparent about. It's something that I struggle with. Speaking on that radio station and sharing my story with people, that's success for me. Sharing that journey and reaching someone, that's success.
Mm-hmm.
This that the three of us ladies are doing right now and talking about sensitive topics, if it can help somebody, make people aware, answer some questions, this for me is success. That's success for me. So it's not just one thing for me, and I'm sure it's not just one thing for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Find out what makes you happy. Find out what the question was, how do you measure success for yourself, not how society or anyone else is measuring it for you.
Yes, I agree with that. I wholeheartedly agree with that. That has been, I would say, my biggest downfall because I felt that, and I think earlier, Kimberly, you mentioned in fraud, felt like a fraud because I don't see myself the way that other people see me. I've been told I don't see myself the other. And when you were speaking, Leslie, when it's so weird to call you that. When you were
Did you
speak,
call me Leslie?
I did, and it feels so bizarre.
That's
When you
okay.
were speaking, I I know I've told you this before. I wish you could see yourself the way that I see you.
I know. I knew that was coming
I
because
wish
you
you could see
all
yourself the
the
way that I see you.
I wish I would
You would be
for you.
odd. You would.
Oh, well, we're gonna need tissue.
I know. Oh, well, mine are out of reach. So I said fraud, but I think what I was really thinking in my head was imposter, right? This imposter
Imposter
syndrome.
syndrome. Mm-hmm.
And so I was reminded earlier today, but last week, I was talking to a colleague and I was saying to her, so I remember when I was and I need to stop saying just. I was a lay member in my congregation and I would see her and I knew who she was. And so she was this big, impressive minister. And so when I got to meet her in person the first time, it was like, I'm in her presence. And I have thought of her that way for years, oh, she's up here. And so I said that to this person who was very surprised to hear me say that. And then later I was saying to this same person, I'm in a group chat with these women. And sometimes I ask myself, what am I doing in this group chat? And she said to me, well, when are you going to stop asking yourself, what am I doing? What am I doing here? Because it's so obvious to everybody else what you are doing here. But I show up in spaces all the time where I need to like check around and make sure like nobody saw me slipping. That, and it's not, I don't know if it's true that I feel out of my league. Maybe it is true that I feel out of my league, but it's not that exactly. But it really is this sense of, how did I get to be at this table with all of these impressive, important people? And everybody else is, well, maybe not everybody else, but there's probably at least one person who's like, how did I get to be at this table with Kimberly?
Exactly.
I rarely see that part though. Yeah. But right, imposter syndrome does a number on us.
Yes, it does. I think that it's important for us people, myself, to recognize that, and if I'm repeating myself, I apologize,
No, it's
to,
okay.
to recognize that we can't let our measure of our own worth, our measure of our value be determined by other people's gaze. We have to look within ourselves and see what it is that we that we bring to the table. Recognize what it is that we bring to the table, because if we continue to look to other people to validate us, we're always going to feel like we're lacking, I think,
Yeah.
because there's always going to be somebody who feels like things could have been better. Things should have been better. You should have been this. You should have been that. You could have done this. You could have done that. And what you think I could have done or should have done or should be or could be doesn't necessarily align with what I want for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily align with what my values are, the things that I find important, or the things that I think should be the goals that I go after. For
Mm-hmm.
some people, they think you should be chasing the bag, but I don't want to do that.
I think that we're probably talking about slightly different things. This question of what I bring to the table is a different question for me than what I have to show for my life. Both of them, I think, give me a little bit of pause, but I think I feel pretty comfortable most times with what I bring to the table. Where I have a lot less comfort is, what do I have to show for my life at 50? And part
Right.
of that is about how I value myself, but part of it really is how society values me, how society values my work. It is true that I have worked very hard and done very good work that made a difference in the world and a difference in people's lives. And none of that work was ever going to earn me a lot of money. And how we value people's time and effort is often with money.
Mm.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that for me, that is not how I measure my success. That is not how I measure failure. I don't measure it monetarily. I measure my success, my failure, what the things that give me this sense of accomplishment, this sense of
Right.
what am I doing here? What is my purpose? Because I think that when I think of failure and success, I no longer care, or I try to no longer care about how other people would do it. I don't want other people's definition or description of success or failure to influence how I feel about myself.
Right. Right.
I want that to come from within me. I want that to come from the being that I value. I want that to come, in my case, my truth, my accomplishments, my failure, my success comes from my relationship with God, with
Mm-hmm.
how I show up in the world, with
Mm-hmm.
how I influence others, with how I am able to live, exist, in this world without feeling that I am without purpose, without feeling that I am without, that I'm not providing a value to society, to community, to the world.
Right. Right. And there is no wrong answer, because no two answers are going to be the same. It's
Right.
Kim's is what hers is to her, mine is to me, and Tara, yours is to you. That's why, like I said before, it's how do we measure success for ourselves,
One of the things, or one of the points I wanted to make for myself, is that a lot of times when I'm feeling self-doubt, when I'm feeling, I mean, I know that I say you don't let other people define you, you don't let people measure your success or failure, but I'm human. I'm not perfect. And that is aspirational for me. But in reality, in real life, I do sometimes let that come in. And what I have discovered is that there are times when I do have a lot of self-doubt. There are times when it goes beyond self-doubt. I think it even reaches sometimes a level of anguish. Yeah. And I found that turning to scripture brings me comfort. And one of my favorites is 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, where Paul writes, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." And for me, these words remind me that even when I am feeling all of those things, that negativity, that self-doubt, the anguish, God's grace sustains me and his power shines brightest in my weaknesses. They shift my focus from worldly measures to success or measuring success by the constant love and grace of God over my life. And another verse that speaks to me, and I hear it a lot, is Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." And this verse encourages me to reframe my perspective on success and failure by, I guess, grounding me in the idea that God has a purpose and a plan for each of us, that even when we feel like failures, God's plans are filled with hope and a promise for the future, even when to us that path seems unclear. I understand that I thought you wanted to say something. I'm sorry. I understand that.
I mean, I did, but how did you don't know what I was going to say?
I didn't say I knew what you were going to say. I know you want to say something. I understand that other people may be on different faith journeys, but these verses for me are sources of strength and reassurance.
Yeah.
They remind me that, as we said before, I'm a work in progress. It's like everybody else. And that's okay. It's okay. Hopefully one day these messages are going to become ingrained in me and guide me without me needing to have reminders. But until then, I am grateful for the journey and for the growth.
Yeah. And yeah, everybody is on a different journey. Everybody, may not turn to scripture. Whatever works for each one of us is what works for each one of us. No judgment. We respect where everyone is. Jeremiah 29:11 is actually one of my favorite scriptures as well.
I was going to ask that you repeat both of them for people if they want to go back and read them for themselves.
Sure. The first one was
Corinthians.
2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. And the other one was Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11.
All righty. So ladies, I think that this was a great topic. I almost feel like it's something that we may have to continue, because it makes me think about something I know I asked Tara, I may have asked Kim as well. And listeners out there, if it's something that you want to hear, let us know. I wonder, because of something that was said to me in the past, I wonder if you ladies feel like if you're struggling in a particular area, because like I said earlier, we're all a work in progress. None of us have, we're all a work in progress. Do you feel that one person can be of help to another person in an area that they themselves are still having a challenge with?
Ooh, good
Let's,
question.
let's save it. Let's ponder that.
Yes.
Let's come back with this, this part 2.
Sounds good to me.
Indeed, because I have thought.
Okay.
Yeah. So this should be interesting. I have thoughts as well. Yeah, but it should be good because I really want to know. I really want to know what you ladies think. I want to know what the listeners think, and this should be good.
All right.
Listeners, we have thoughts and you will hear them.
As we wrap up this discussion on perspective makeover from failure to success, we want to thank you for joining us. If you've ever felt like a failure, know that you are not alone. And if you're currently dealing with these feelings, we hope that this episode brings you comfort, validation, and inspiration. If you've enjoyed today's episode, stay connected by following Unfiltered Perspectives on your favorite podcast platform and subscribing for new episodes every Thursday morning. We also invite you to join the conversation by sending your questions, comments, and topic suggestions to unfilteredperspectives@outlook.com. We love hearing from you. I'm Tara.
I'm Leslie.
I'm Kimberly. Thanks for listening. Until next time.